I'm here in Spooner doing a lecture on the most haunted places of the Midwest, the most gruesome. And these are covering all over Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois. But when you're looking at places like this, the best thing to do is look in your own backyard. There are many places right in the Spooner area that you can go and try to have your own haunting. So that's what I encourage people to do, is get out there and explore for themselves. So get out there, keep an eye out, and happy Halloween.
My name is Chad Lewis, and my background is actually in the field of psychology. But for the last 20-some years, I've been traveling the world in search of the strange and unusual. Everything from cruising out to Area 51, checking for vampires over in Transylvania, looking for the Loch Ness Monster, crop circles, UFOs, alien abductions, weird places, weird legends, you name it, if it's strange and unusual. So tonight I'm going to give you the background, the folklore, the eyewitness accounts. I'll talk a bit about some of the equipment that we use on our investigation of these cases. That once cemeteries were chosen, they were thought to be portals between our world and the spirit world. Now, most people call her the Italian bride. She was 29 years old when she was giving childbirth, and she died from complications of that birth. And she, as the Italian custom, was buried in her wedding gown here. But immediately after her death, her mother began having strange dreams in which her daughter came to her and said, "Mom, please dig me up, help me, I'm buried alive, I'm down here." And you can see it looks like she was buried the day before, even though she had been in the ground for over 6 years. Immediately after the story came out about her being buried alive, many people would often be walking through the cemetery when they saw what appeared to be a woman in her bridal gown walking through, thinking she was maybe somebody getting married, paying her respects to a loved one. They'd often watch her, only to realize she didn't look like you and I look. She looked like she was from the late 1800s, early 1900s. She often appeared transparent, and she would often disappear right before witnesses' eyes. But many people will recognize this as being the place for the St. Valentine's Day Massacre of 1929. This used to be a hideout automobile shop that was a cover for George Bugs Moran, one of the biggest bootleggers during Prohibition. He also happened to be the arch nemesis of Al Scarface Capone. So Capone decided he was going to get rid of Bugs, and he had a great plan. When he was down in Florida, he hired some of his colleagues to show up as police officers. Capone's men opened fire on all of the gentlemen, killing all of them or wounding them. In fact, once he started shooting all of them, the only survivor was a dog. The dog was barking so loud that the neighbor lady sent one of her tenants over to see what was going on. I get reports from owners who say that their dogs will behave in one of two ways while walking by. Some of their dogs will get aggressive and start barking and getting aggravated at something that's not there. Others report that their dogs all of a sudden become fearful and start cowering and refuse to walk along the area where the massacre took place. This is the place in Clear Lake, Iowa, where the music died. Because back in 1959, Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper were playing the Surf Ballroom in downtown Clear Lake. Buddy Holly was sick of their old van freezing up on them. So he hired a plane to take him and two other musicians off to the Fargo-Moorhead area for their next gig. Because soon after takeoff, the plane, in a terrible storm, crashed into the farm. All three of the musicians were dead on impact, along with the pilot. You see, many people will be out here when all of a sudden they hear the music of one of the three people being played. But when they look around, they can't find the origin of that music. Others have been driving down the road when they see what appears to be a plane crashing into the cornfield. When they notify authorities, they're told that there's no plane that has crashed. And in fact, when they look over, no plane has crashed. They call it Bloody Bride Bridge. According to legend, many decades ago, a young woman was coming home on her wedding night. She was involved in a car accident on the road and she bled to death waiting for help to arrive. And now many people have seen the ghost of this bloody woman still in her blood-soaked gown walking on the bridge. In fact, one of the first witnesses was a police officer who was driving across the bridge when he saw this bloody bride. Now the dare is that if you park your car on the bridge and turn it off, when you look into your mirror, not only will you see the ghost of that bloody bride, but many witnesses have told me that she'll actually be sitting right in your back seat. Well, actually, the locals call it Terror Bridge. It's here that many people believe that it's haunted by a phantom train. Many people will be there when they'll see, hear, and feel a train and its lights coming. But when the train gets close enough to make out where it is, it simply vanishes. But over the years, the legends change, they progress and morph. And over the years, people started talking about a young, distraught mother who went out to the bridge with her young children. She turned off the car and waited, and waited, and waited. As soon as a nearby train started rumbling through, one by one she tossed her children over the bridge onto the oncoming train where they met their end. Once they were disposed of, she did the same thing and jumped over the train. And now the legend is that when you go out here, not only will you see the ghost of the mother, but the kids will try to entice you into helping them. Help me, please get me out of here, the ghost of the kid. In fact, thanks to my good friend and colleague Linda Godfrey, Wisconsin is now known as the werewolf capital of the world. It all began when Linda was working as a journalist down in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. She first started getting reports of people that would go down Bray Road, which is a small stretch of rural road. That's when they would see at night, mostly, but not always, on the side of the road, a very similar creature that they thought was a werewolf. Again, this bushy fur, huge canine-looking teeth, the pointed ears, typical creature. Many of them would see it appear to be eating roadkill or freshly killed prey. But keep in mind that not all monsters in Wisconsin look like this. In fact, some monsters are even scarier because those monsters look like this. Now, being from Wisconsin, we've been known to have a couple weird people come from our state. Anyone recognize this gentleman?
Ed Gein.
Very good, Ed Gein, the butcher of Plainfield, Wisconsin. Some of you younger folks who don't know who Ed was during the 1940s and 50s, you might recognize some of the movies they based on his life, including Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lambs. Now, most people just think of Ed as a murderer. And true, Ed was a murderer. He killed 2 people that we know of, probably half a dozen more, including his own brother. But before Ed was captured, he was well liked in the Plainfield community. He would babysit for kids and bring his neighbors over a big pot of what he called venison stew. Before they could open his house as a museum of horrors that you could visit, it mysteriously caught fire and burned to the ground. Townsfolk torched it, allegedly. But many believe Gein still haunts the Plainfield community, including the old hardware store where he took one of his living victims. Many former staff members told us that they would see a woman late at night in the back of the store. Thinking she was a customer, they'd go to attend to her, only to have her vanish right before their eyes. Others go to the cemeteries where Gein robbed his victims and where Gein's actually buried next to some of his victims. They go here and they'll hear the cries of women thought to be Gein's victims. But my favorite place is Gein's farmland. As you saw, the house burned down, it's no longer there, but the land is still there. In fact, on one of my first trips there, I brought 2 mediums with me. They had no idea where we were going. They thought we were in the middle of a field in nowhere, Wisconsin. But as soon as we pulled in, they refused to get out of the car because they were picking up on such negative energy. And even if you have 0 psychic ability, like myself, you can't help but to not be creeped out here while walking around, just knowing all the things Gein did on his farm. And the mediums were probably picking up on something because many people have come face to face with what they believe to be Gein's ghost walking on his old farmland. program and said that he knew of a haunted house in the area. He knew of it because his grandmother had once lived in it. All kinds of weird things were going on. Apparently the grandmother could find someone sitting in the bed, an indentation next to her, doors knocking and rapping, all your traditional haunted stuff. Music that couldn't have an origin, lights flickering on and off, all kinds of unusual activity. Well, of course, that woman passed on many years ago, and she no longer lives in this house. But here's the kicker. I'm not going to tell you where this house is here in the area, because tonight, when all of you go home and put your head down on your pillows, and you hear the wind rustling outside your window, I want you to ask yourself, how much do you know about the history of your house? And is it possible you might be living in the very same house I'm talking about right now? So let them know so you get more of these. If you didn't like this program, let them know so you get fewer of these. But either way, they put a lot of work into getting me here this close to Halloween, and they should be applauded, and thank you for coming.